In the past few days of demonstrations for NSAS, there's been a lot of condemnation of looting and vandalization of public properties. While some have described the actions of the alleged looters as inexcusable, others have taken a provocative position to defend and offer free legal services to arrested individuals. Some pundits and political activists and analysts have described the actions of the alleged looters as engaging in a powerful tactic that questions the distribution of public property and wealth in an unequal society like ours. Lagos State Police Command had on Tuesday declared that he had arrested over 200 suspects for their involvement in looting and paraded the suspects and the items recovered from them. Besides Lagos, some state governors had also called on residents to return the looted items to the warehouse or risk arrest and prosecution. A former second vice president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Barrister Monday Ubani, had decried the development. Not only has he condemned the arrest, he has offered to give free legal services to persons who took away COVID-19 palliative as a result of hunger and urged them to reach out to him. In the studio with us, we have Barrister Ubani. Barrister Ubani, welcome to Sahara TV.
Yeah, thank you, Tokwe. Good morning, and good morning, Nigerians.
Let me ask you point blank, how will you view the alleged looting, quite controversial to say it now, as some will allude, the mass expropriation of public COVID-19 palliative at warehouses across the country during the recent moment of upheaval in the country, sir?
So it's important to understand the narrative so that we can be able to put proper perspectives, for people's understanding. I don't want to be misrepresented. The point is that I am totally in support of the protest that took place by the young ones for those 2 weeks. Was clearly with them in spirit and of course physically too. What were they demanding? They were talking about the brutalization of the Nigerian police. The issue of presumption of innocence of an accused person was destroyed. In most instances, whenever they arrest, they will take you to ATM and collect money. Sometimes if you don't have the money, you'll be dumped into their cells. So the brutalization has been going on for many years, and despite all the complaints and then promises by the government to reform SARS, they never did. So it got to a boiling point that these young ones had to troop to the streets and insisted on reformation, on carrying out things that are very fundamental about our policing system. So the government came up, with change of name, which was not as satisfactory to the young ones. And so now, in the course of that particular protest, that was very peaceful generally, there was introduction of infiltrators who came into the scene to disrupt those peaceful protesters. And in the process, things got out of hand to the extent that some states had to impose curfew. In the case of Lagos State, we remember what happened was that Lagos, came up with a curfew that was meant to start by 4 p.m. But when they realized that it was not practicable, the government also changed that announcement and now says curfew will start by 9. But from what was recounted by many observers, including international and local, was that even before the time the curfew is supposed to start running, the military was invited, now allegedly by the Lagos State government, to intervene. And we know what happened, the shooting and alleged killings of persons. And then the thing got out of hand, that people now started to now take laws into their hand. Now, most of the people that took laws into their hand, remember, were the infiltrators or vandals who were watching and waiting for a breakdown of law and order, which is actually what happened, in order now to unleash mayhem. We saw burning of government properties. We also saw the burning of private properties, which I, as a citizen of this Federal Republic of Nigeria, condemns unequivocally. But along the line, what was now discovered was that there were warehouses where the palliatives that were supposed to be distributed to the poor Nigerians were being hoarded by the state governments all over the country. And so the people that were hungry, the people that were asked to stay at home during the COVID-19 issue, found out that these food that were supposed to be distributed to them were being kept by the government for reasons that are clearly unknown. And so they broke into those warehouses and carried away those palliatives, which ordinarily should have been distributed to them in the first place. And so for those ones who went to carry those palliatives and they were, very hungry, and those palliatives that were supposed to have been distributed to them in the first place, I am totally with them. I felt that the government that actually hoarded those things were supposed to be the ones to be arraigned for conversion, because those things were meant for the people. but the government officials kept those things, and they have no reason. To the extent that some of those items that were hoarded have expired. There were some states where they saw expiry dates, on some of those items that were supposed to have been given since May. So they had no reason whatsoever to have ordered. And then we now start hearing contradictory, reasons being given by the state government where those things were not distributed to the poor people. Some are saying that they want to use it during their birthdays. Some saying that they were setting up committee that now will arrange the issue of distribution. Some saying that the issue of the goods, the palliative, have not been properly handed over to them, and so they cannot go ahead to distribute. So all manner of reasons. Some saying that they were even waiting for the second phase of the COVID before they now can begin to. So all manner of reasons we have been advanced, which shows that these guys didn't mean well, for the citizens. So things that were supposed to be given to them, you have no reason whatsoever. So the government, instead of coming up to explain and publicly render what you call an apology, tender an apology to Nigerians for doing that, it was clearly criminal. It was clearly uncalled for. It was wickedness of the highest order. In the highest places, wickedness in the highest places for government officials to have hoarded those items that ought to have been distributed. I remember that many Nigerians were saying that those things never got to them, even when government were claiming, they were claiming that they spent billions and billions of naira in issue of palliatives. And Nigerians are saying, where are the palliatives? You never gave it to us. And there are no homes that actually can come up and say, I got a palliative, or let alone talking about enough of it. And now we found out that those palliatives were now in warehouses all over the country and not being distributed. So those ones that went out to carry them because they were hungry and never destroyed any government property and never burnt any government property, those are the ones that are offering free legal services. And now let me say this, sir, with due respect. The government is now, trying to give kudos to themselves for the mass arrest. They have arrested so many all over the country, and they are, probably, giving themselves a pat on the back for doing all that. And meanwhile, those people have not been granted bail. Meanwhile, these people have not been charged to court. The system again has tried to manifest that wickedness that made those boys to troop into the streets, saying enough of brutality. We must allow our legal system to operate. If somebody is alleged to have committed a crime, what the law says that they are presumed to be innocent. Either you grant them administrative bail or you charge them to court timelessly. The law allows you to put them in detention for 24 hours, after which you must charge them. Now you are putting them there, in detention now. The system is already manifesting wickedness to them, and they are seeing it. And it's like what they have complained have not been redressed. The system is failing them. These guys went as far as going to sacred chambers of judiciary in order to burn even the court. Because according to them, the system itself has always failed them. Even the judicial system that's supposed to be there for the common man has not lived up to expectations. So again, the government is falling into the same error by showing wickedness, by manifesting a system that is not working, by keeping them now in detention indefinitely without charging them to court or granting them administrative bail. These are the kind of things we do not encourage, and we do not want it in our country. We are in democracy. We should operate within the bounds of the law. We must begin to do things as people that are civilized. And then we must also introduce humaneness in operation of government. Because there are people, these are people that elected you, and you are there for them. You are there for them on their behalf. So whatever you do must reflect that you care for them. So I think that the government should not in any way, pat themselves on the back by keeping these guys in indefinite detention. They should either charge them to court or release them on administrative bail. That would be the right thing for them to do in the circumstance.
Some of us also allege that the mass arrest and detention of these suspected COVID-19 palliative looters across the state will continue to threaten the federal government's plan to decongest correctional facility centers, detention centers nationwide. What's your take on that?
That is actually correct. We have been complaining about this issue of awaiting trial. And the system, administration of criminal justice, has failed severally in treating these issues in a manner that shows that we operate under our laws. The law says that if a person is arrested, he is presumed to be innocent. What is supposed to be done is that you charge that person timelessly to court. And then the court will, if it is something that is an offense that is bailable, grant that person bail. And then the person now faces his trial. But a system where most times you just get people on the street, get them arrested, put them in detention for an indefinite time, even when you take them to court, the court system itself does not grant them bail. They give conditions of bail that is practically, unfulfillable. And then you now put them in the correctional center. you overcrowd the correctional center and make it impossible for them even to get justice. Most time the cases are not being called up. And even when they are being called up, the IPOs are not there in order to give evidence so that it can decongest the court. Most time the system now fails these guys who eventually end up staying 10 years, 15 years, 8 years at detention without a proper trial, without them being properly convicted. We call them awaiting trial. And that is the system that have been on for years and which people are complaining. Now, if these guys manage to get out of the system, they become very wicked. They become very upset. They become very frustrated. And that's why you see a lot of them do the kind of things they do in terms of criminality, because they feel that the system has failed them. So we must show that we are bound by law. So what I'm trying to say in effect, in the question you have asked, is that the system is failing itself again by arresting these all light quantity of persons and then putting them in detention without proper, trial process, without dealing with them the way the law itself has prescribed. We have seen what Administration of Criminal Justice has provided for at the federal level and in all over the states. And those people are supposed to be arraigned. And if you arraign them, then the court will now grant them bail. Then they will now come for their trial. With reliable sureties, you grant them bail, and then they come and face their trial. But the moment you now park all of them and put them either in detention at the police level, or you put them at the correctional center without proper trial, you have made them now to realize that the system is complete a failure. And that's why they become very disgruntled and very frustrated and begin to unleash mayhem at any slightest opportunity. See what's going on now? A lot of them are so frustrated to the extent of even visiting the judiciary and then burning. If you see the level of damage that was done to Nigerian judiciary, I'm talking about Lagos State judiciary. I mean, the entire almost 17 or 18 courts. And the quantity of damage, the enormity of damage is clearly unquantifiable. That people have tendered evidences, exhibits, original copies of their documents during trial process. Now, those documents have been burnt. They cannot be recovered anymore. And there are some cases that were waiting for judgment. Judgment was already ready for them to be read. Now you have destroyed all the judgments that have been prepared by the court. So those cases have to start de novo. Now you have even destroyed all the files of the court. So the court now will only now rely on lawyers and parties now to build up new case file for those cases now to resume de novo, start afresh. So the damage is clearly enormous. We should not allow such a thing to happen, where people will get to a level of frustration that they begin to unleash mayhem and anger upon public properties and upon public institutions. We should not allow that to happen again. That's why I'm appealing to government at this time to show some level of humanity in dealing with these boys that have been arrested.
Finally, Barrister, do you foresee a clash between jurisprudence of the law as it is and the responsibility of the state to its citizens at this time, and what should be done in order to avert that clash?
What I think is that the attorney generals of the various states should come up now, and advise the government properly on what to do in the circumstance. They have this mass arrest, as I said earlier, all over the country. And some of them now have not been charged to court. Some of the judiciary, some of the courts have not resumed. There should be something that should be done. Either grant them administrative bail to reliable sureties, or if in those states where the courts are working, charge them to court immediately, and then allow the court now to take over. And then there should be proper prosecution of those who have actually committed some of those crimes we consider very unpalatable. I mean, destroying public properties, destroying private properties, and then looting, things that were not supposed to be looted. I'm talking about private property that were looted, some shops that were destroyed and all that. People should face their consequences. But for those that went to those warehouses and carried those palliatives, if I'm in the shoe of advising the government in the circumstance, I would rather advise them to caution those people and release them, and ask them not to repeat that, such a thing again. They should show humaneness, because the government themselves failed in their responsibility of distributing these hoarded items in the first place. So that was why the people got angry in order to go and carry those things, which eventually will not even get to them in the first, because government said they don't have data, they don't have statistics. But when it is time for election, they will know how to reach all those unreachable places and get them to vote for them. But when it is time for them to distribute palliative, they say they cannot reach them. And so you see what happened in the second day. People got angry and went and carried those things that actually belong to them. So government should show some level of responsibility by cautioning them and releasing them on, on bail and telling them not to. And then take down their names, in case they commit any other crime and all that. That's how a humane society works. And that's how a society that is responsible to the people works. So I advise them to do that. But those who actually committed crime that we consider very, very bad, they should be charged to court timelessly. And then let the process now begin in order to probably get them convicted. That is the way the society works. Don't put them in an indefinite detention. It is not the proper thing to do.
Barrister Ubani, thank you very much for your insightful analysis and perspective on this issue.